So there's one mindset shift that I made when I started making records, and it has been the one thing that has had the single biggest impact on how good those records sounded. Yes, you can go and get the latest fancy plugin or a new instrument, and it'll probably give you some tangible improvement, but we're talking small increments, small percentage points of improvement here. What I'm talking about is one mental shift in the way that you approach making those records that will make them sound day and night better. So what is this mystical mindset that's going to instantly improve your records? Honestly, when you say it out loud, it sounds really simple. But essentially, it can be boiled down to making decisions early in the process. Commit to sounds early on and don't put things off to fix at a later stage. The best piece of advice that I ever got went something like this: record like there's no mixing, and mix like there's no mastering. So why is this so powerful, and how is it going to improve your records? Well, any decision that you put off until later will more than likely become a compromise. Let's imagine that you're recording vocals and something's just not quite right. Maybe they sound thin or harsh or peaky in the high mids. If you just keep going and think, oh, it's okay, we'll fix it in the mixing, then the first thing that the mixer is going to have to do when they pull up your session is get surgical and fix those vocals. Now, maybe they'll come out sounding decent, but again, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll still sound a bit off. The point I'm making is it's a compromise, and you're taking the mixer's attention away from what their primary job is: mixing your music, balancing it, and making it sound great. They're not focused on that. They're trying to fix the vocals because there's something wrong with them. Now let's look at how we could approach that scenario differently. What if during the tracking session we realise that something's just not quite right, the vocal's not hitting exactly as we want it, so we pause and we switch out to a different mic, one that suits the singer better. This is always going to result in a better sound, and best of all, when the mixer pulls up your session, they can get on with their main job, which is mixing, balancing, making your song sound great, rather than carrying out damage control. Let's look at another example. Imagine you're recording guitar and you can't decide on the best tone for the song, so you record a DI. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and in some circumstances you absolutely should take a DI. Reamping is a very real thing. However, as a guitarist, the way that you will play certain parts will be very much dictated by the amp and the tone that you've got dialed in. A great guitarist will play their parts depending on how the guitar and the amp are responding. So when possible, which for me is 99% of the time, I'll get the exact tone that we want dialed in right at the time of recording. If it turns out that we don't like that later, then we'll replay it. Here's another example. Maybe you're mixing and you're really struggling to get the low-end thump that you want from the kick drum. Rather than waiting until the mastering stage and telling the mastering engineer to get some more low-end thump from the kick, fix it right now while you've got the mix open. If you need to, go back and add an extra kick sample. Route your drums through some parallel EQ and compression. Do whatever it takes to get it sounding exactly as you want it right now. When I'm recording, I've got absolutely no issues whatsoever being as heavy-handed as it takes to get the sound that we want, the sound that's right for the song. For example, if the vocal needs to be compressed, I've got no problem running the vocal straight through an 1176 on the way in and slamming 10 dB of gain reduction, if that's what the song needs. If we're recording drums and the snare is too dark and we need to crank 15 dB of high shelf on the EQ, do it. This all really stood out to me when I got the opportunity to look at some raw production tracks from some of my favourite artists that inspire me, such as Daughtry, Green Day, Carrie Underwood. The raw tracks with zero mixing sounded absolutely insane. They were so good it blew my mind. What this means is when your song goes to the mixing stage, the person mixing can just get on with the job of mixing, rather than having to fix things that are just not quite right. Similarly, the unmastered mixes of these songs again sounded A1. So when they go to the mastering engineer can just get on with the job of mastering and making it sound even better rather than taking part in damage control. Now, is all of this easy? Absolutely not. Will you mess it up and end up having to go back and play a part again? Definitely, that will definitely happen. But I guarantee, if you start implementing this mindset of making decisions early and committing to sounds, your songs will sound better. It will take time, and it's a road, it's a journey, but at the end of that road, you will get better sounding songs. The reason that I like it is because it completely focuses your mind, and you can hear how every aspect of your song is working together. By sculpting new sounds that fit as you go along, that will always result in a better sound, rather than just recording a bunch of tracks, a bunch of takes, and then trying to make it all make sense in the mix later. Now, if you're an artist, a songwriter, or a producer, it's very likely that one of the biggest things that you struggle with is monetizing your music. I have dozens of conversations every week, and this always comes up as the number one thing that people struggle with: how to make money from your music. The reality is that the way that you do that today has changed massively compared to 5, 10, 20 years ago. The landscape has totally changed. The reality of the situation is, if you want to make a full-time living from your music, you cannot rely on just one or even two sources of income. You need several. Now, in order to help with that, I created the Music Monetization Checklist. This goes through some of the best ways that people are making money from their music right now. Not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, right now. This checklist is completely free, and the link is in the description below. Go check it out.